It
It
is
is Tuesday.
You know, I did my vocal warm-ups today, so I could have held that note forever.
We
Thanks,
should have a
Carolyn.
contest one day.
Yeah,
It'll be who can hold the note longer.
I think we should end the episode at the end of that because everyone will be like, well, now
Like,
that's
we'll
it.
run. Nobody wants to listen to that. Oh my God. Hello. Welcome to the
Hi.
podcast. We have Alyssa from Mixed Up Money. I am so excited.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited too.
Oh my gosh. I've been hunting this woman down for so long, literally like DMing you for months because I'm in love with your content. And I've never been someone who's like outrageously into money. I was kind of like, well, money in, money out, like it'll do its thing eventually. But yeah, your content literally was like my gateway drug into the finance world. So,
I
thank
love
you.
that. I'm happy to be that for you.
I'm so happy with that for me.
Alyssa,
Uh,
the financial gateway drug. Welcome.
That'll be my new bio on
I was
Twitter.
gonna say, I think that has to be your new bio. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so excited. I'll do the formal introduction with your, wonderful bio and then we'll just dig in because there's so much I want to talk to you about that I don't want to waste any time. And I just want to say this came out at a perfect time. So this is really like everything is just aligning for us. I was just reading a newsletter from Scotiabank the other day, and they were talking about a poll that came out saying that 43% of Canadians lose sleep over finances.
Hmm.
It's crazy. It's such a big thing, and it's not an area we talk about very often. So I also just posted that on my story on Instagram. I really want to start getting some more finance content out there because it's such a big topic and it's such a big thing that really can create a lot of stress. So without further ado, we have you.
Go in your best actor voice, Raquel. I believe in
she's
you.
she's trying to train me. Okay. No, now I feel like I'm no, it's too hard now. Alyssa Davies is a content manager for Zolo, a published author living in Calgary, Alberta. How do you publish author? It's insane. She is the founder of the two-time award-winning Canadian personal finance blog of the year, Mixed Up Money, that has over 80,000 followers across social media. Through her work, she has been featured in many notable publications, including the Globe and Mail, Flair, CBC, Gem, and more. Her second book, now there's a second book, The Financial First Aid, is now available for pre-order at any book retailer near you.
I
Hello!
love it. You did amazing.
Thank you.
So good, Alyssa. Alyssa, I think you have your new your new voiceover lady.
Yeah, I think so. You can come on my podcast, do my introductions. You really pump my tires. So
I love it. I have
Everyone
to
needs a
say
hype
though,
man.
it's just very weird. Like, I feel so out of sorts not hearing myself. Just so you know, people, if I start sounding very weird and off, it's because I can't hear myself. And I feel
Not
so.
because she's deaf and lip reading at us, by the way, because that would be an exceptional skill, like no joke.
Right.
But it is because Raquel has just amended the tech
Yeah.
details of this arrangement.
We have tech blunders, and now I can't hear myself, and yeah, it's odd. It's a very odd feeling.
Alyssa, so the two books, they are they're available everywhere, right? I just want to make sure
yes, you can get them anywhere. Indigo, bookshop.org, like anywhere that you prefer to shop for books. They're available.
amazing.
You're incredible, first of all. I have such a girl crush on you.
I
Okay.
This was like when I interviewed Michelle Lee. Hark back to that episode where Raquel was like, "Calm down, calm down."
I
Before the
literally,
start of the episode, don't freak her out. Don't freak her out.
like, stop now. Okay, but first, because I have again so much to jump into with you, but I want to talk to you first about what your life was like growing up. Where did you grow up, and what got you into finance? Because I know that's not your main job. So how
Mhm.
did you segue from communications to finance?
Yeah, so That's a big question. Growing up, I mean, I'm Calgary born and raised, so there's very few of us left, but this is where I grew up. I actually grew up in the country on an acreage. So a bit of a farm girl at heart, I guess.
Love it.
But yeah, it's a city that I love. It's been a part of my life for a long time. And I think one thing about Calgary and Alberta in general is that money is always a topic of conversation here. It's always been one of the provinces with the highest average income. So a lot of people really strive for making big bucks here. And my family was very much like that. We are very much go-getters. And in turn, I have always kind of felt that same drive. But the one difference between me and most of my family is that I chose to go in a different direction than the typical oil and gas industry workers, which is what most people in Alberta end up doing. And I just wanted to be a writer. That was my dream forever. And when I started doing that, I fell in love. But the thing about being a writer is you don't get paid very well. And so I got into a ton of debt. I had consumer debt and I had student loans. And I actually landed a job at a not-for-profit organization where we were helping people get out of debt. And I was the clients we were helping. And I was like, wait a minute, this is really ironic. I am terrible with money. And yeah, so as soon as I realized that I needed to get my financial life together, I started this blog. It was like anonymous for a week. And then I was like, forget it. I'm just going to tell everyone I have debt. And yeah, then it's just like, it's rolled into what it is today. And I couldn't be more grateful because it's one of my greatest passions.
Okay, that reminds me of that movie. What movie is that? And she's like oh my gosh, she works for a magazine and then she like buys all this stuff. Is that cute little redhead
Oh,
the
yeah,
Confessions of a
yeah.
Shopaholic.
Yes. That's exactly what that reminds
These are the
me
types
of.
of films and books that I read and watch. I have no shame about this.
Oh, no, you shouldn't.
Oh, that's
I
so great.
loved that movie.
Yeah, with Isla Fisher.
Oh my gosh, she's
Yeah,
so
she's great.
adorable. Yeah. That's exactly what that reminds me of. Okay, so that's really interesting. I had no idea in Calgary they talked about money because I grew up in Vancouver, which is one of the most expensive cities in
Oh, yeah.
actually I think North America. And money is not talked about. Like you don't really talk about money. You definitely don't talk about salaries. It's like very I don't know, I grew up just very like not even your parents. Like I wouldn't have known what my parents earned or anything like that. It's just kind of like swept under the rug.
Mm-hmm.
So I find that really interesting. I had no idea there was that culture difference even between provinces within the
Mm-hmm.
same country.
Yeah. And I feel like obviously it's give and take. Like it's still a taboo subject. My family wasn't open about it. We are now because I can't help but talk about it constantly. um, but yeah, like when it comes to your relationships and stuff, it isn't really common to talk about it with the people that you love because it's so uncomfortable and it can make this weird like power dynamic about, well, you can afford this and I can't afford this. And that's
Mhm.
why a lot of people prefer not to talk about it. So I understand that perspective completely. I think there's a time and a place to talk about money.
I agree. I want to say, just as a lead in, I wasn't sure there's so much I want to talk to you about. So I was like, which angle am I going to take in? But I think this segues really nicely into relationships and couples because
Mm-hmm.
the first post I ever saw of yours that got me so hooked on your content was actually about getting in bed with your partner financially. And I loved that. And you were talking about that quite a bit. And it really actually shifted the way I thought about my relationships because in the past it was very like I have my money, you have your money. I didn't really ask or care about their money situation. I was just very like in my own lane.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started reading about what you were talking about, I was so hooked and I was like, "Okay, I'm definitely approaching my serious relationships at least differently." So, can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, for sure. So I have been with my husband for 12 years this year. We've been married for 6 years, I think. I don't even know anymore. Time isn't real these days. But yeah, we've been together for a long time. So we've hit a lot of milestones together. And at the beginning of our relationship, we never talked about money either, because at that point I was just in debt and living my life and I wasn't too worried about money. And then all of a sudden it kind of came to a head when we were like both upset at who was paying for what. And we didn't know why, because we had never talked about it. And so I just try and now remind people that are entering relationships, like, it's better to just talk about it early and often, as early as you can, as often as you feel comfortable, because the longer you wait and the more like life milestones you hit together, the harder it becomes to actually like get to know your partner and feel like you know their spending style, their saving style. Like, are they going to be the reason that you guys aren't able to save for big goals? Do they have a bunch of debt that maybe you can help them pay off? Like, those are really important conversations to have with a partner.
And even the stress levels. Like I was just thinking about it. My partner and I have been talking a lot. We haven't been together nearly as long, but we've hit a lot of milestones. It was just kind of like we got together at a pivotal time, I guess. And so we've both had to, go away, and, he does his training with rugby, which is quite expensive. And I went to Europe and did my master's, which is quite expensive. And now we're just about to kind of settle down from that. And we're talking about, okay, what's next? It's like, engagement. So we're making my ring right now. That's expensive. Then it's like marriage. Okay, that's expensive. And we're talking about where we want to invest. So we've got 2 different countries we want to invest in. Which do we want to do first? And we're like, holy, there's a lot. And never mind like cars, because we were traveling nonstop. So now it's like coming back and we have to resettle. So there's a lot of things that you hit within a relationship, I think, especially if you're dating someone in your, mid to late 20s up until you're, upwards. I think just
Yeah.
upwards. It just keeps going.
Well, everything we do in life has to do with money. Like, you can't do the things you want to do without money. And so even the first time you go on a trip with your partner, it's like, oh my gosh, who's going to pay for what? And are we splitting this 50-50? And is 50-50 actually fair? Because maybe your partner makes 6 figures and you only make $40,000 at your not-for-profit job. Like, those are those are
this
very
sounds
different.
like from experience.
Yeah, but those are really different things. And so it's more about like, how can we make this relationship as equitable as possible? Like, we both feel like we're contributing equally and it's fair, so that we can both achieve financial success, because that's what being in a relationship is about, is having a life partner.
Okay, I want to ask something. I've been bandying around. So I work a lot in career pathways in media and entertainment. I have been talking about the term alt currencies for a really long time. And when I say really long, it's been like a year. But we often will talk about the financial vertical, when we look at our various currencies of life. To take the example of what I will call like quote unquote traditional housewife, or someone who is doing work that is raising a family,
Domestic labor.
And even people who are doing work that is, like you said, not for profit, that it is putting in the bank other social currencies that are not financial. How do you talk to your partner? Because there are very few frameworks, and maybe this is why we need to read these books of yours. But how do you talk to your partner and say, hey, I recognize that the most valued currency still is financial, but here's how I need to negotiate with you in a loving way what value I bring to this relationship, and then make a decision together on what those pillars are and what they're worth. Like, how do you even begin that conversation?
Yeah. Well, I like the very first money conversation, I always encourage people to keep it a little bit less about money and more about life. So like you said, the things that you want to accomplish together. It's like asking something as simple as, what is your wardrobe going to look like in 10 years? If someone's saying, well, mine's going to be like, casual jeans, t-shirt, and you're saying, I'm going to be wearing a blazer, or I'm going to be wearing a suit. Well, those are 2 really different lifestyles. So kind of connecting on like, what does this mean for us? That's a great question, right?
What's your
And then,
wardrobe?
yeah, the domestic labor aspect of things is a much, much bigger conversation than just being in a relationship. Like as a mom, as a wife, as someone who does a lot of stuff around the house, it's a really hard thing to actually jump into the, hey, I'm doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes that you might not see. And if I wasn't doing those things, the household wouldn't be functioning as well as it is today.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, your husband cannot see the things that you're doing because they've always had women to kind of take care of those things for them. So I actually just read a book that if anyone is experiencing this, that's listening or watching, it's called Fair Play. I think it's by Eve Radowski. And she basically has an entire way that you can walk through the conversation of, hey, let's equitably split all of the labor that we do in our household and talk about whether or not we need to do all these things, and have you actually realize all of the things that I do, and split it up so that we all have to take part in the household, because it's like, it's way bigger. And because it's unpaid, people think that it's not a big deal, but it is a huge deal. If we paid moms or stay at home moms for their work, it would be like nearly $200,000 at the minimum.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty I love that. And I'm going to take note of the book and put it in the links and the resources for
Yeah.
the show. Yeah, thank you. I love that because I think coming from whatever your culture is, whatever your background is, and whoever the home-based partner is, I think it's really important to, even though I say this a lot, even though it's not our fault, it unfortunately is our responsibility if someone else is not going to take that first step to look at what the value of the other is, whether it's by ignorance or another means. If you're in a loving, kind relationship, a lot of the time you can secretly, and I felt it before where I've secretly been like resenting. I started
Oh, 100%.
resenting the person that I was with because I was like, well, I'm doing all of this stuff and you come back and don't say anything. And the backup argument is I'm making this money. I'm keeping us alive. Keeping us alive is not
It's
paper based always.
no. And it's called, in another book I've read, it's called human giver syndrome. And women are raised with the understanding that we have to give everything before we can give to ourselves. And that is
Human giver
partially,
syndrome?
yes. And so that is something that's kind of internally drilled into us when we're younger that we don't even realize.
It's a strong feminine energy, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think I have animal giver syndrome.
Probably. We all
My
do.
animals get fed better than I do. They get better haircuts than I do. More often than I do. Okay,
That's
I
interesting,
love
yeah.
this conversation. I will say one thing: when I got together with my partner, I was very clear from the get-go because I'd watched my mom do this with every partner she's ever had. And she's such a badass. Like, she is a working, or was a working mom when I was young. Actually, she still is because now she had another kid, so my little sister's still a kid. She oftentimes made more money than her partner, but still was doing all of the housework. So there was no conversation of, well, I'm bringing in the money, because she was bringing in the money as well. And I'm seeing that more and more where women right now, if you look at the statistics with universities and everything, women are actually more highly educated than men. And so the numbers of women who are earning less than their counterpart are actually going down. But I don't even think that's the actual root of the conversation. I don't think it's really the currency. I think it's more what you're talking about with the human giver syndrome, where we've seen actions throughout our life, and now we embody those, and that's just how we now react. So when I saw that with my mom, I saw that people didn't really realize the value of it, and I always thought to myself, like, that's not the life I want.
Mhm.
So I had that conversation right away with my partner. I said, going to be a 50-50 relationship. I'm not saying like there's a star chart on the wall or like you did dishes, I did dishes, but we're going to look at, you know, making this as easy as possible for both of us. If one of us doesn't mind vacuuming and the other hates it, happily I'll take vacuuming or whatever it is. You know, if you hate folding laundry, I'll do laundry, but then you're going to do this, this, and this. Like, I will not be in a household where I'm doing everything.
Yeah. And my husband and I have had that conversation a lot, and it's evolved a lot. And we're actually like, we've talked about this so much the last few months because we just had a baby boy. And
Congratulations.
thank you. Up until that point, we just had our daughter and we were renting. And then now we're in this big house. We have 2 kids. And I'm actually back to work and he is on parental leave. So he's on parental leave for 8 months. And it's just a different perspective that a lot of people don't really understand. You know, why am I working? Why is he at home? And so we've been having conversations about like, it's important for our kids to see you doing the stuff that women do. And it's important to us that we raise our son the exact same way we raise our daughter. Because when I was growing up, you know, whether we did all do all the same chores, but like, you know, my brother did more of the outdoor labor chores and I did more of the inside chores. It's like, although we both did both, it was more like 80-20 when it should have been that 50-50, so that you understand that you're responsible for everything. So that when you have someone, you're a good life partner. Like that's all I want for my kids, right?
Also, so that, for example, when things like The Quiet Place 2 happens and you have to fight all these aliens that have some really weird affectation that I'm not going to give away, but you have to fight them, you have to know how to do all of the things.
Exactly.
You just have to know, people. So I just want to say, after watching both of those films and not being very good with watching terrifying films, you got to do all of the duties inside and outside. You have to know how to do them all. That's all I have to say about that.
Oh my gosh, I love this though, and I think it's so important to have that split within your relationship and to have that conversation. I think is so powerful because and it really comes down to values as well as what you want to save for. I think that one conversation stretches so many threads of a relationship, you know. It's like what you said about what do you want your closet to look like in 10 years? I think that's such a good question. For me, it was like, I want to be traveling. So if I'm not with someone who wants to travel, that's not going to work well. And if I'm not with someone who can save, that's not going to work well. Even if they want to travel, but they can't save, well, you need money to travel. So,
Yes.
right? Like there's so many big things that we have to take into account in a relationship.
I also wanted to ask, in terms of, you know, whether it's for yourself or clients or people that you interact with in your community, do you have a lot of people who have a really good conversation with their partners about who's taking what career path as well? Like, do you talk about career pathways at the same time? Because, for example, for me, I work in the gig-based economy. I have moments where I'm like, okay, I can get a stable job, get this, qualify for this. You know, I start forecasting and foresighting what is possible. And then, you know, for those people who are in that same position, when you get to a point where you bring that to the table, like how important is that to do for yourself? How, like, are there books or resources where you can be like, okay, here's how we kind of sit down and separate just actually financially, who's in the lead right now? What's your trajectory? Where are you going? Where am I going? What decisions do we need to make as a team?
Yeah, well, I think that it depends what stage of your relationship you're in, for starters. Like when you're just entering a relationship, if you're like in your late 20s or your early 30s, you're probably way more equipped to know exactly what you want, what you want your life to look like. So maybe you're having those conversations a lot sooner than you would have in your early 20s. So I think it's okay to talk about that kind of stuff. I think you should, right? Like you want to know if your futures align. But as far as the money aspect, like, we talk about money every month. Every month we chat about how things are going. Every year we redo our goals and set goals and see where we're sitting and if we still want the same things, because we die so many deaths in our life. Like things change so often and you cannot predict what's going to happen. So even if you say in 5 years, I'm going to be making this much, it's good to have that insight, but you never know if it's going to happen. So like you can only control what you can control. You can only prepare so much. So it's just important that you're having the conversations more often than trying to assume that having the conversation once is going to set you up for success, because like we never would have thought we'd be where we are today 5 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's I love the monthly check-in.
I like the yearly one. I talked to Jean about doing retreats, like a yearly short retreat, even if it's a weekend long, and just have an awesome time and then
We're all
write
about
down our
retreats.
goals. Yeah. And
Well,
then
I
write down
like
our
that.
goals, right? Because then it's under like you don't have everything going on. You don't have people pulling you from every direction. I mean, we don't even have kids, but I can only imagine with kids it's even harder. Everything is laid out in a calm, fun way. So you go away to have fun, but then you also have these discussions about what you want. And I think it just makes it a safer space to talk about. So that's something like we've really talked about and tried to do as
Oh,
well.
we should
have
do
like,
bombshell retreats for couples.
ooh, yeah, we
Finance.
we every New Year's, our tradition is to do something called the Year Compass. It's a free download. It's a booklet that you can print off, and yeah, we just fill it out. It takes like a full day. It's really thorough, but you reflect on your past year, all the things that have happened, let go of any regrets, and then you just put down all of your goals and hopes and dreams for the upcoming year. And so we do that individually, and then we come together and we share our answers. It's we've been doing it for, this is our third year doing it. And it really helps us set the trajectory for the next year. And it makes us feel like confident and that we're on the right track, we're on the same page. And that's when we have like our big conversation about money goals as well, because we write them down and we're like, is this possible? Because this is what I want. So yeah, I love the idea of a weekend retreat. That's going to be, we'll just tack that on so that we can get away from the kids.
Yeah.
We'll let you know when we've designed one for you to join us on.
Perfect.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so that brings me to daycare versus staying at home when you have kids, because okay, this is my mentality about it. I just want to throw it out there because I can't stop thinking about it recently, but for me in my career, it takes so long to climb the ladder, and you can slip down a slope so fast. So for me, even if, because daycare is hella expensive, and I want you to talk about that in a second. Daycare is so expensive, and I understand if you have like one kid, even it's like a rent basically somewhere every month. Um, but even more so if you have two or three kids that are within daycare age. And I can see why people would choose to stay at home. But for me, when I think about it in terms of my career trajectory, the hit of staying at home for a year would be so massive that it would backslide me. And I think the end financial goal um, would actually, like in the long term, it would actually hold me back more than paying the extra money and not having any income but still working.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to talk to you about that, because what you do, which I think is so awesome, is you'll post on your stories, like you'll find a stat, you'll post it on your stories, and then you'll get your community to basically poll in and weigh in on what their experiences are from all over Canada, what they're paying for daycare, what they've paid for the wedding, what they paid for wedding dresses, whatever. It's so fascinating. I get so sucked into your content. But can you talk about that? Like, what are people doing? What are you seeing? Um, and what are the financial ramifications?
Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's the motherhood tax. Like as soon as you have kids, even if you stay in the workforce, you take a hit. Um, it's just like if you have to take that time off of work, which I did have to do, yeah, you lose a year of earning potential. It's oftentimes you're looked at as, because you're a mom, you're not as reliable. You'll have to take more time off because when your kids are sick, it's going to be on you. And, you know, people just have all of these prejudices, and that's just that comes with being a mom, and people are working at it and we're getting better at talking about it. But it's an unfortunate reality that it does impact your finances quite significantly. You can obviously go back to work. I encourage people to go back to work. I know it's not always an option for people, or they don't want to, and that's totally fine. I'm just really, one of the things that I talk about in my book, my upcoming book, a lot is protecting yourself in a relationship, whether it's the best relationship you've ever had and you know nothing's ever going to go wrong. You still have to have a safety plan for yourself and for your money. Like I have an emergency fund that's just mine, just in case something happens. And so does my husband. And we talk about it a lot. And we also both know that if I were to stop working for 6-7 years and then say something did go wrong and we ended up having to get divorced, or my husband passed away unexpectedly, I've been out of the working force for 7 years. And so having to be able to find a job that could supplement the income that we were probably making before would be nearly impossible. And so it's dangerous. And that is the motherhood tax, is that you are often forced in this impossible situation. And so that's why a lot of people are advocating for universal childcare, because if we do have something like that, the reality is that the economy will actually do better because more people will be working, and we'll be able to afford to have people caring for our kids and still be able to feed them. So it's like a tough decision to make. And we're going to have to put my son in daycare in the fall, and it's going to be an adjustment for our budget. But at the same time, it's like, it's this many years, and that's something we have to prepare for. That's something we have to plan for. And if that means that we can't save for college for them for a few years, or I have to lower my retirement savings for a few years, that's part of life, and that's okay. You just have to be comfortable with adjusting and continually going back to say, like, where am I, and what's this going to look like over the next few years?
Oh my gosh, so that actually reminds me of the story you posted. I think you posted about this and you asked people if they had had an experience like that, or maybe they were just writing in and saying it. I just remember you sharing it on Instagram, and I think there were numerous people saying things had happened to them, whether it was like, their partner had gambling debt they didn't know about until it was too late, and other
Just
things where someone
unexpected mental health issues where,
mental
they
health, passed away,
Mhm.
things you can't control for. And it was so eye-opening for me. I think that's really interesting that you have your own nest egg.
Mhm.
So, how would you recommend people within a relationship set up their finances? Like joint accounts, joint assets, separate, like some is joint, some is not. Like what do you think is a good mix for people in a let's say serious relationship, obviously?
Yeah. Well, there's three different ways you can do it. You can do a full merge, combine all of your finances. You can do a blended approach, which is what my husband and I do, where some is combined, some is not combined, or you can keep things completely separate. I think that it will change a lot throughout your relationship. So you don't have to be tied down to one idea. You can start with separate, you can then turn to blended, then you can combine everything, because obviously as you go through life, things get more and more like, okay, well, we don't really have a choice. Like we have a house, so it just makes sense for us to combine everything, and stuff like that. But the reason that we chose blended is because it still gives us that kind of separation, that privacy, that opportunity to have money that's just ours, to feel that independence still.
Mm-hmm.
Because as someone who's obsessed with money, it's not fair for me to be like going through my husband's every single expense and be like, why did you buy this lunch? You don't need that. When, we're still paying our bills, we're still hitting our savings goals. Like it doesn't matter what he's spending with his money. And I think it's okay for us to have that. We were very transparent and open. And I think I encourage people to have that. But I also understand why people combine. It's easier. It's less thinking. You can see everything all in one place. And I also get the separation. It's like, I want my own money, and that's that.
Okay, so what does let's get super niche and specific. What does a combined, or what can a combined look like? What would you recommend? Like, would you have a joint checkings and your own savings? Would you have like your own bank accounts, but then also a shared one? Like, how does that all kind of
So that
look?
sounds more like blended. Like if you
Okay.
have your own savings accounts and your own checkings accounts, then those are yours, right?
Hmm.
Combined would be you only have checkings accounts and savings accounts together. You both access all the same money. You share all your credit cards. You share all your investments. Like it's pretty much just you're all in all together. You can still have like the checking and the saving, but it's rare that people do that if they're all combined. I find that blended is typically how things go these days. I think with our parents, it was always combined. But I think our generation really loves blended finances because of the exact reasons we've already talked about, which is, yeah, you have a joint checkings accounts where you both get paid. We have separate checkings accounts where we both get paid because it's just easier. And then we have our money go into a joint high interest savings account. And then from that account, I disperse the money to our bills, to our savings goals. And then we have one joint or two joint credit cards where we pay for all of our household goods. So groceries and diapers and clothes for the kids. So
Okay.
Can I
Oh, go ahead.
can I ask one question in just very quickly? Numbers wise, hours per week on average, what would you say that you invest with your partner? Like how many hours a week or month would you say this is a good amount to kind of for us to put aside? I know it's different for everyone, but just ballpark, like
for investing,
for taking care of the finances, whether it's like
oh, like
talking
how
about
much
it,
time
how
do we
much time do
spend?
you invest? Yeah, how much time do you
Okay.
invest in it?
Yeah. So we probably check in like any payday. So that's twice a month. Just to say like, I'm putting this much on the credit card, you're putting this much on the credit card. That we have this much left over. What do you want to put it towards this time? Do you want to put it towards our home renovation fund? Do you want to put it towards a vacation fund? We have those conversations every single payday because I don't know, we're feeling different every couple of weeks. I think it's good to talk about it and that's okay.
Yeah, I think the regularity of it is so crucial, right?
Yes,
Um,
definitely.
and so for me, I am very much like a time block type of person. I'm like, this many hours a week I'm going to spend on this. This many hours a week I'm going to do this. If I was to say, okay, I need to put aside like an hour a week just to like do my finance talk, is that enough? Like I know it probably would take a big lift to kind of like for someone like me who is very like deer in headlights when it comes to finances, to do the big lift of like 5-10 hours, you can get all of those systems in place. And then is it like what, an hour a week, 2 hours a week, like on
Christina's gonna have
average?
a cutoff. She's
Always
literally gonna
numbers.
be like
Tell
her
me.
timer's gonna be up. She's
Yeah,
like,
Yeah.
you're
I've
done.
done it now.
He's like,
Yeah.
but we still have like $3,000. I don't care. I don't care what
Yeah,
happens
now
to
it's
it.
time for
The
play.
time is out.
I think self plug, you would like my journal. It's the 100-day
Ooh.
financial goal journal. It sets you up for a basic financial goal that you have in mind, but it also has a different lesson in every single chapter. So it will teach you like the best way
Oh.
to automate your finances, the best way to set up a budget, what
Mm.
budget's going to work best for you. And then every single day you actually fill it out, kind of like a 5-minute journal. You just fill out how
Oh,
you
I'm
felt about
getting
your
it.
money today, the emotional side of your money, how much money you brought in today. Especially if you work in the gig economy, it can be good to track it on a more
Yes.
consistent basis.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that would be really helpful for you because I love journaling about money. I find it hugely, hugely related to my emotions rather than anything else. And so I've learned a lot about what my spending triggers are and how to kind of control those behaviors.
I
Oh.
love that you just said that because I will very like complete honesty, transparency. That is exactly how I feel. Like I talk to people all the time. They're like, yeah, you do this and you do that. Like, how do you get all this stuff done? When it comes to money, I'm like, if I'm not getting paid or if things are happening financially, and Raquel has seen this multiple times with me, it cripples me. Like I get
Mm.
so crippled, and I love normalizing. Raquel and I talk a lot about normalizing daily not necessarily always habits or routines, but having something where you're normalizing a behavior. And for me, I feel like I can take a deeper breath just knowing there's a journal out there. I can do a few minutes a day, just get used to talking about money with myself. Because I know we've spoken about it in a partnership situation, but even as an individual, like, or if you're from a culture like my culture and background and my personal family, we talk about money as a family too. So, depending on where you're from or what kind of life walk you're walking, it's a really important. Like, I have investments with my parents, and it's really important for me to have a framework to feel good about them on a and on all of us on a grand scale. So I love that. The 100-day journal.
The 100-day financial goal journal.
Okay, love it.
It's unfortunately on back order right now, but it'll be back soon.
It's that popular. I need a signed copy. That's what I would like.
We both want signed
We
copies.
want signed copy. Actually, you know what? Maybe that's what we should do is figure out how to get
We'll just order some.
orders. We'll order sent and then sent to you with a return box and be like, please
A
sign.
return label.
Or we're going to Calgary. Road trip to Calgary. That's the
yeah,
other
that could be
option.
good. I've never been to Calgary.
Me neither. I really want to go.
Yeah.
You got to go to the mountains, not Calgary.
Okay. We'll go to the we'll meet you there.
Okay, perfect.
Meet us in the mountains to exchange these autographed books, please. It's the best content ever. Are you standing on a financial mountain right now? Help. Would you like to
Content
not die and know how to survive in the wilderness as well as your bank accounts and money things? We have got your back.
Exactly. That's the promo for my new book. You're hired.
How to not
With a
die.
little flag. You need a flag in the mountain
Yes.
too. Okay, so I love this. I think then I don't know if I'm gonna ask you this, but if it's in the journal, then maybe we'll just push everyone towards the journal. High interest saving accounts like our RSPs, our ESPs, all of the savings things,
All the acronyms.
investing. Yeah, come on. Like, if you're trying to save for, let's say, longish term goals, so you're not talking retirement where it's like 20, 30 years from now. We're talking like, okay, I want to save a down payment for a house, or I want to do a big trip, or, something that's, let's say, 2 to 5 years away. So you don't want it totally locked in. Where would you recommend people put their money? Because I did learn through now following financial gurus like you that you don't want to just let it sit in a savings account because that does nothing for you. So how do you make your money work for you?
So when you say goals, there's long-term and there's short-term. So short-term goals are typically, we'll call those anything that's less than 5 years away.
Okay.
The best place to put that money is probably right now is just in a high interest savings account. It unfortunately doesn't yield you very much money because the interest rates are pretty low, but it is better than a savings, like a general savings account or checkings account that's just sitting there doing nothing for you. Another reason it's beneficial to put it there is because it's separate from the rest of your money. So it's really clear that that's a goal, especially if you need to compartmentalize things. Like I need to keep all of my savings goals separate. So I have like 5 high interest savings accounts. You can nickname them and like get really fun with it. And I love high interest savings accounts for that reason. So if it's a short-term goal, that's one option. You can do like things like a GIC, a guaranteed investment certificate, but those interest rates also aren't great and it will be locked in. So if like in some chance that you do end up needing that money, in case there's an emergency, then it might not be the best choice for you. If it's any goal that's over that 5-year period, typically, that's when you can look at investing your money in your TFSA or your RRSP. Sorry for all the acronyms. I know if you're not financially literate, that's what scares people away from money. And I promise it's not really that scary. It's just like they just have terminology to make it shorter, but those are just investment tools that you can use to make your money grow and to give your future self a chance.
Okay. And then before we get into the rest of the conversations, I've got one last finance question for you. If people have debt, but they also have savings goals, what do you recommend? Because I know like the old school thinking was don't put a penny into a savings account, don't spend any money until you've paid off every cent of debt. What are people recommending now?
I think that one, I always say that's an emotional decision.
Mm.
I think it is a good idea to invest and save at the same time if you can. Even if you're just investing $20 a month, that can be hugely beneficial for your future self. But at the same time, when I was in debt, it was ruling my life. I felt extreme depression because I felt like I was trapped. I was barely able to make ends meet. And so the only thing I wanted to focus on was repaying my debt. And I wanted to throw any extra dollar that I had towards my debt. And so that was an emotional decision for me. And whether it might not be the best financial decision doesn't really matter if it means that you're going to feel like you're doing the right thing for yourself.
Oh my God.
That's huge. Yeah, that's such a. Ugh. I'm really sitting in this emotional attachment to money,
Mm-hmm.
and how crippling it can be. And
Mm-hmm.
so I know you said just one more question, but I have one really
No,
quick
go,
one.
go.
So if someone's really intimidated by all the acronyms, like, I don't know, just some random person who doesn't look
Not
anything like
us.
me, not me at all. But if someone's struggling and it all seems really overwhelming and it's very decision fatiguey, can you give us a couple of resources or people to go to first where you kind of go, okay, you need to go to a financial advisor, or you need to, if someone's in, because I know people who are in exceptional debt and very much putting their head in the sand about it. And
Yeah.
all I want is for them to have one conversation and be able to say, like, look, this is going to cost you this much time, this much money, and it's going to be a big uncomfortable thing, but here's a beginning. Like,
Mm-hmm.
where's a good beginning?
So there's a few options. One is absolutely you can speak to, I always say, a fee-based financial planner. That is someone who will charge you an upfront fee rather than charge you based on your money, like your investments and signing you up for things that you maybe don't need. So that's an option. One of my favorite places that you can do virtually, so it's a little bit less intimidating because you can do it from the comfort of your home, is Kind Wealth. Um, they're a Canadian company and they have financial planners that are fee-based and that will sit down with you and kind of let you know what your options are. So that's one. The second one is if you have a ton of debt, you can go where I got a job in the financial industry, which is a not-for-profit debt consolidation organization. And what they do is essentially set you up on a plan to help you repay your debt. So if you have like an unmanageable amount of debt, they'll give you the options for how you can actually move forward with that in a way that you can actually handle, and that collections agents will stop calling you. And, it's just eliminating the stress that comes along with the debt. Another option is, because it's expensive sometimes to do a lot of things, is to just pick up a book. There are tons of great financial resources. That's an easy first place to start. You can go to a library and take one out. And the last thing is, if it's really emotional and you're really scared to talk about it, therapy. Go for it. Money trauma is a very, very real thing, and it's okay to talk to a professional about it.
I love that. And there are a lot of resources in various ways, especially in this country, where you can get free or subsidized counseling.
Yes. Yeah.
And seek that professional help, because I think a lot of people get very. I was having this conversation with someone the other day about celebrities. Like, you look at celebrities that have blown all their money, they're living a life, they continue to live that life. And that is a macro version of what can happen on a micro level, especially if you are living or working, and Raquel and I know this well, in an industry that's super glamorous. So you're spending money, you're going out, you're doing these things, and for you to turn around and say, I don't have enough money to go for that happy hour, that drink, is social suicide. But it can be career detrimental to you as well. So that notion of being like, how do I deal with this, is I think even though we see it in celebrity, like, sob stories, or like quote unquote sob stories, they're real stories of people who have lived at a certain level and are now readjusting, and that humility that's required to do that but also the gumption, that's the bravery that's required to take control of that before it's too late, is it's so important. So I love the book idea. I love audiobooks. I love the book idea because I find books my safe place. So I can read a book first, get some verbiage, and then take that to potentially a nonprofit place. If I'm that person that's in
Yes.
that situation, I can do that without feeling the shame. But I think it's also really important to check in with yourself, everyone, watching and listening, like check in with yourself about how you really feel about it. And then I posted this morning on my Instagram, get a small victory going. So if you're like, I'm just going to go to the library and I'm going to rent that one book, or I'm just going to download that compass, but I'm going to, that end of year compass, or I'm going to just subscribe to Alyssa Davies at Mixed Up Money on Instagram and just start normalizing interacting with financial experts. Those are little wins.
I'm the opposite. I would absolutely, like, if I'm in that burnout mode, I want someone to tell me what to do. I'm the person who wants to go, sit down, have an expert sit in front of me and say, Raquel, it's going to be fine. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. Here's your plan. I love a plan. I live by a plan. Tell me there's something in my control and I will feel good. Tell me it's not like me. Like, if I'm going to sit and start reading books while I'm in a burnout mode, my head's going to spin. So pick the way that works for you. If it feels safer to pick up a book, pick up a book. Like, exactly what Christina is saying, do the step. If it feels like you're so overwhelmed, you just need someone to tell you what to do, even if that gets you through the first month and then you start reading books on it and start creating your own journey, do that. Whatever it is, just take that first step. And I think following someone like Mixed Up Money, or following an account, that's the account name, is Mixed Up Money. If you can follow something like that, it's so approachable. It's such a good community. People are so open about money. It's positive. I just think that's going to really help you normalize and reduce that fear, which brings me into your incredible community, which was the other side of what I wanted to talk to you about.
Right.
Is you have created such a warm, open community talking about such a taboo subject. How in the world have you done that?
It's a great question. I ask myself that every single day. I don't know how I got so lucky. Because before 2020, so before the pandemic, I had like 2,000 followers on Instagram, and I was just focusing on Twitter, focusing on building my blog. And then the pandemic happened, and I was like, I'm just gonna like start drawing for fun. And when I started to post those on my Instagram account, things started to move really, really fast. And I started to get a lot more followers. And so this isn't something that like I had planned to have, this community, or that I ever thought I would have. And so I just feel like, because I'm so excited about it and I think it's so cool, I feel like my main goal as a content creator is to just interact with them and actually get to know them. I feel like a lot of pages that I follow, it's you just kind of consume the content, but you're not really engaged with it. And I love engaging with everyone that follows me because I feel like it's productive for all of us. It's a ton of work on my end, but like I learn something new from other people every single day. And I think that's what makes it a safe space. Like, I think that we are conditioned our whole lives to feel a lot of shame about money. And when you finally find people that don't let you feel that way about it, it's like, oh, wow, this is so nice. And suddenly I feel like I have so much control and so much power in what I do with my money. And that's just all I want people to feel when they come to my page, is like, okay, I can do this. Like, even if I'm in the worst possible situation, like there's something I can do. There's something within my control.
I love that. And even I think your big thing is Starbucks, but you talk about
Yeah.
how, having a Starbucks was this old world way of thinking about things, that if you have a coffee a day, then you could have had a house. Like, what are you doing? And you really break the mold on that, and you have sassy content, and it's just the content is so on point. I'm doing a Master of Persuasive Communications, just FYI. So I'm
Nice.
like super nerdy about it, and you've hit so many awesome points on it. So I think that also is what has made me fall in love with your content as well. But it is a safe space, and I know the the commentary that you put out there and the discussions you put out there are hard not to respond to. Like, I am not someone who normally responds to people's Instagrams. I'm very much that ghost person that just like
Yeah.
will look and move on. Like, I hardly even like things, to be honest. But with yours, I'm constantly responding to your posts because it's interesting stuff you're talking about. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, that's what I want to talk about over a glass of wine with my friends. Like, this is really relatable content. And then you actually respond.
Yeah.
Exactly like what you're saying. You actually respond. A lot of, accounts, they won't respond. They'll kind of put the posts out, and they might be great posts, but then that's it. That's where it ends.
Yeah. And I
Um,
understand that, like, it's exhausting. Like, I've started to realize I need better boundaries because, it's
yeah,
really, where's the line? When
yeah,
do I have time off my phone? When do I have time for me? So like, I understand that why creators don't do it, but at the same time, like, I love it.
yeah. So that's what I want to ask you too, is how much time does it take you to, I guess, feed the beast? Like, I don't know how else to put it. But I know for us, like, we have a team that helps us with the podcast. On the Instagram, we're responding to things, but we do have a team that helps us with the production of the podcast. They're incredible. They help us with creating content. They help us with all sorts of things. And we still put in, between the two of us, a ridiculous amount of time. You are an author, you have a podcast, and you have this bumping community. Like, and you have a full-time job. Like, how are you doing this? How? Tell us.
I have just started responding to people now by saying it's my high functioning anxiety. It's not actually me doing any of this stuff. Um, I I find like I do really well with time blocking, like you've kind of brought up, where like I know what time of day I'm putting towards certain things. Most of the time when I'm working on my Instagram, it's at night. So after my kids go to bed from like 7 till 10 p.m., I'm planning content or drawing content or working on content. And then throughout the day, like I just answer things as they come in so that I don't have an influx of messages coming at me all at once. But for me, it's about like, if I'm getting all of my stuff done, the most important thing to me is that I have at least 3 hours for my family where I'm like completely disconnected every single day. So I usually work from like 7 to 3 or 8 to 4, and then I'm completely offline for those few hours. And that is the one thing that kind of keeps me sane in all of the things that I have going on. Up until this point, I've had no help. Like I completely managed my site by myself. I was editing my whole podcast by myself.
Oh my God. No.
I've written 2 books in 3 years. And so, yeah, I just started to kind of realize the boundary thing when I was talking to my therapist. And I was like, yeah, I think I should start asking for help and hiring people to help me with stuff. So I don't think I'm the model of like, you should do it this way, because I'm absolutely still figuring it out. Because like I said, this wasn't planned. Like this just kind of came to be, and I love it. But yeah, I have to figure it out because it is like, it's a ton of work. Like I probably invest easily 20 hours a week just into social media, which is an insane amount of time considering like I work 40 hours at a full-time job on top of that.
And
And
have two
that's not even
children.
including the book or the
And
kids
then,
or the
yeah.
husband or
Yeah. Or the blog. So
The blog. Wow.
Wow. Okay, wait. Okay, books, because it is my goal to write a book. I'm putting that out there online now, so it's out in the ether. I've never,
manifest it.
yeah, I'm manifesting it. It's never been talked about before, except in my brain. So, how do you structure your life while working full time and having your family? How do you structure writing time? Because I'm a deep worker. Like, I need
Mhm.
I time block too, but my time blocks are like, I need 6 to 8 hours on this project. I
Mhm.
need 6 to 8 hours on this project. I don't do like a 15-minute thing. So how do you structure writing a book?
So for the book, I was obviously on a timeline for both of them. I had about 6 months to write each book,
That's
which is
it?
that's not a long time. It's not
No, that's
typical.
really short.
Yeah. Um, but because I like that is what I took in university is journalism. So like I'm fairly comfortable with writing. My full-time job is a content manager. So like I write a lot of content every single day. I write like 300,000 words a year. So like it's not unusual to me. But in the summer is when I wrote both of my books. And so I had one day every single week blocked out to write. So the first few weeks was like basically a full week of planning and coordinating the outline of the book. So like all the chapters, all the people I want to interview. And then from there, it's just kind of like one day you do interviews, one day you write this chapter, one day you edit this chapter, one day you fine tune this chapter, and then like move on. So it was like I kind of had to I made a spreadsheet because I made a spreadsheet for everything. I have this many chapters, I have this many like Fridays to do the book. So how many words do I need to write every single Friday is how I kind of did it.
And how did you create the space for yourself to do that? Because if you're working from home, I imagine that can be difficult. It would be for me anyway. So how do
Yeah,
you
I
like
mean,
make that happen?
we have an office here and like my husband's very, very supportive, like beyond supportive. And so like he took on way more of the responsibilities during that time because he knew it was important to me and that it's a dream of mine. And so yeah, that was easily how it happened is he gave me the time and space to do it. And so I owe like so much of that to him.
Aww.
Oh, shout out the partners. And that's,
Built
I
a
think that's,
hobby.
yeah. And I think that's another really big, important part of having those financial conversations and really sitting down and having that compass and bringing together your goals. And I love any good relationship, whether it's intimate or a work relationship. I mean, gosh, Raquel did this literally yesterday to me, left a message saying, I can see you're at this point. We're going to do this. This is what's best for everyone right now. And to take that on instead of it being a, traditional or not traditional, I should say, an unhealthy work relationship where someone says, why can't you understand what I have to do and what's going on in my
Yeah.
life?
Mhm.
Making sure that you've got those two, I call them faders, but like your two faders in good balance and having the conversation around good finances and around your life goals first. And that wardrobe piece is it sets you up to be able to say, hey, I really, really want to do this. I really need this deep work time. I need this to happen. How can we do this? And can we do this? And is this a time that can potentially work for you? Because when you know it's finite and you know it's a project or you know it's something that's going to happen for a limited amount of time, it's a lot easier to digest me putting in a bit of a heavy lift on one side for you to be able to do the other and vice versa. So shout out
Totally.
to that communication piece. Yeah.
Dang. I think this is like such
That
a
was full
nice,
circle
that made
moment.
me so happy. But for real, and I think, as you get older, the importance of surrounding yourself with the right people, and just like Christina, what you're saying, whether it's your friendships, whether you're in a relationship, whether you have, your parents, however you've structured your life, making sure that you're surrounding your life with people who respect your dreams and who are willing to help you get there. I think the whole idea of everyone needs to do this on their own just needs to go and die.
Yes, agreed.
Right? Like,
Go and die.
just go and die. Like, I know I grew up with that mentality. Like, if you don't do everything completely on your own, then it's like you can't even thank yourself for doing it. No one does any. And then I grew up and I was like, even the adults that made me feel that way are like, no one does anything on their own, right? I'm like, well, why did you raise me thinking that? Because now I'm sitting
Yeah.
here and every achievement I do, I'm like, well, I can't really take any credit for that because I didn't do it totally on my own. Like, someone once helped me You gave me an apple, and therefore I have to share that credit. Like, you know what? We all get help, and that's part of the journey, and that's also part of the work, is
Yes.
cultivating and creating that community around yourself.
And being
You
able
know?
to be there for them, right? So
Absolutely.
when we talk about it, we talk about, like, and that's what Raquel and I call fire friends. So we say this a lot, and a lot of our audience now is very well aware of it and actively seeking these fire friends and seeking to be them. Because if you can't do the same thing, and you're just, there's a very big, I think, misconception about going out and getting what you want, and winning. But, there's a big conception about that. And I don't think that's the big, thing. I think it's about giving and getting. I think it's a reciprocal thing. So, with that in mind, I know that we have to wrap things up, because we could talk to you for hours and hours on end. And we probably will continue. Now you have two people following you around. We'll end up on a mountain at some point getting a book signed. But is there anything that you would leave as a piece of advice to anyone who is about to start a shift in their journey? Is there anything that you would say to someone that's like, okay, I need to get up and financially shake my
Pivot?
Polaroid picture? I don't know
Oh my
what the rest of that statement is. Piece of advice. I'm showing my age here. Shake it like a Polaroid financial picture.
Oh, I think you're maybe muted.
That would be me. I was just saying, based on like where we kind of ended all of that, I would say the number one thing is to just like be unafraid to ask for help, especially when it comes to finances, because I think so many of us are scared, thinking that because we don't know anything, we're going to ask the wrong questions, or someone's going to judge us, or like it's too late. I haven't started, so like, why should I bother now? It's never too late, one. And it's okay to ask for help. Like, it's encouraged to ask for help, especially when you don't know the topic. No one actually knows this stuff that well. And another great quote I've heard recently is that expertise is like, and mastery of something is actually an illusion. Like, none of us will ever have to stop learning. So it's perfectly okay to say, I need help.
Love it.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. You guys are awesome.
You are. Thanks for listening, bombshells. In order to continue to elevate, subscribe, and don't forget to click that little bell so you can get notified every time we have a new badass brunch. Until next time, stay focused, fierce, and fabulous.